We're going to welcome a very dear friend of mine who rewind a few years, and just to give you a little bit of an idea of the power of this organization. And again, I was introduced to it um, and kind of on the grassroots when Harrison kind of had the idea of a way to give back, and have seen it evolve. But I met our next guest at a Soldiers to Sidelines social event in San Antonio at the AFCA Coaches Convention. We were in a little German pub, a fantastic place. If you ever just off the Riverwalk, if you ever get down there, and he came up and introduced himself to me. He was still serving at the time and transitioning out over the next, if I remember correctly, next several months or so, and was wanting to get into coaching. And he gave me his business card, which I believe I still have to this day, right? And he struck me as someone who was really impressive, right? And it grew my affinity for the type of folks that this organization draws from. And fast forward now, only a couple years later, I mean, we're talking 2.5 years later. He's now, for multiple years, been a integral part of the UCLA football program, and has coached at every level of the defense up to this point. Spent some time with a really good linebacker coach from the last couple of years and their assistant linebacker coach, and is now working with their defensive end slash outside linebackers. And I don't want to steal all of his thunder. Some of you guys know him and know him well, but super excited to introduce. He's going to talk to you a little bit tonight about kind of his path into coaching, transitioning out into coaching, and how Soldiers to Sidelines maybe connected some dots for him. And then he's going to transition after that into a tackling talk, right? A foundational skill in our game, right? Coach Tressel tonight talked a lot about the foundational things in our game, and Joe Douglas talked about it as well. So super excited to introduce my really good friend, Anthony Goliver. Anthony, take over, buddy.
Hey, thanks a lot, Jared. Appreciate the opportunity to speak with you guys. I'll go ahead and share my screen now. Can you guys see that?
Not yet. There we go. It's coming up.
All right. And I know
Got
I
it.
want to do the optimize somewhere.
Yeah, I think maybe you have to optimize it before you share. I think when you hit that share arrow on the right-hand side of the screen, there's a little button that says optimize. So you might have to unshare and reshare.
For those of you guys watching, I was a Marine grunt, so bear with me for a little bit.
You see it?
Yeah, I got it.
Okay.
Can you guys see that?
Coming up right now. Yeah, we got it.
Okay, so I'll actually talk about the tackling first, if you don't mind, Jared, because I
Yeah,
know there'll
absolutely.
probably be more
Yep. Dig
questions
in.
about my journey.
Dig in.
Uh, so agenda, we'll do drill progression, drill to skill, and then background and my testimonial as Jared shared with you a little bit. But I'll talk about the drill progression and tackling first, just because the last time I did a talk like this, I know there ends up being a lot of questions about the journey and all of that with Soldiers to Sidelines. So um, I lost the comments, but if any questions come up, please just let me know. All right. Our motto on defense here at UCLA is it's EAT. It stands for energy, attack, and tackling and takeaways. All right. So I'll be talking about tackling and a little bit of takeaways tonight. But this is the motto that we live by here at UCLA on defense. And this is uh, what we stand for, and we break every meeting down as a unit every day down as when one eats, we all eat. So we believe this is the how you win on defense. There's a lot of scheme. I know that quote from Albert Einstein got talked about, but it's the people and it's how you do things. I do a lot of the playbook drawing, but it's how the players and the coaches bring those drawings to life that really matter. What I do in this office doesn't really translate to winning until they take it out there on the field. And we play together and we play fast and physical. Last year, we had some pretty good success on defense. Pretty exciting coming up. We're playing our sore subject, but our coordinator from last year went across town for the money. So we get to play him next week, but we're not looking ahead. But we're doing pretty well on defense this year, especially in run defense. But I didn't want to put those stats up there because I am a little superstitious. So, but we're doing all right this year as well. So you can see number one in rushing defense, and obviously you can do a lot of scheme stuff. But at the end of the day, when you get to the ball, you got to bring that ball carrier down. In terms of just drill to skill, I just wanted to address that. I know you guys talked probably a little bit. I missed the first night, but how to nest your drill development into your scheme, right? So some of these drills you guys might see, obviously tackling is a little bit different. Tackling at the end of the day, you're getting the ball carried down. That's going to fit within any scheme, but you got to fit that within how your coordinator and ultimately your head coach teach tackling, right? A lot more people are getting away from the head across, the old school method. But you still have to nest your drills within what your coordinator believes in and how he teaches. So don't just take a drill from here just because you saw it and apply it. Also, I know I stole this from Harrison actually, intention and attention to drills, right? So the drills alone don't make a player better, but it's the intention and attention that you guys are paying to those drills that help. And then I believe in being clear, concise, and repetitive. So there's different ways to make a drill less boring, right? But at the end of the day, you want to do that skill over and over and over again. And you want to coach it clear and concise, be concise with your coaching points to allow your players to get the most out of those drills. Some components. These came from Soldiers to Sidelines. I believe in them wholeheartedly. You should be able to name the drill, identify what the purpose of the drill is, give a description. You should have clear coaching cues. And then, like I said, you can have some variations to change it up day to day so that it's not getting too repetitive. But I believe in these aspects, especially the purpose of the drill, right? Allowing your players to understand what the point of the drill is and how you're breaking that skill down so that they can see it transition over to the field. All right, we're going to talk about tackling. How we teach tackling here at UCLA. These are the steps, if you will, to tackling, right? So the first thing you do is obviously there's going to be different levels of tackling. You can have tackling from a safety fill in the alley who's 20 yards away from the ball carrier when he gets the ball, all the way to a D lineman where the running back is pretty much past him by the time he's getting off the block and having to make a tackle, right? So obviously within these, some of these don't apply to every single tackle, but when you're in space, we believe in lasering the near hip, right? That near hip is if he's on your left shoulder, right? His near hip, if he's running towards you, is his left hip, right? So that near hip, if your eyes are laser focused to that, able to peripher blockers, but your eyes laser focused on that near hip. We all served in the military. That's why we're here, right? Like a laser guided munition. I talk to our guys all the time about being laser guided bombs to the ball carrier, right? Long stride. Essentially, what that is that's just a sprint, right? I'm in a dead sprint again, talking for a guy that's we call it like level 3, right? Where he's 15 to 20 yards from the ball carrier and he's got to close that space quickly, right? We want to close that space faster than he can make the decision, right? And so that's why we're going to get into our short stride, right? Short stride is I'm now 10 to 5 yards from the ball carrier, right? I've shortened that stride length a little bit. I'm not in a full on sprint, but I'm still going left over right. All right. I haven't gotten into a left feet position yet. And that comes with TAMP. We say come to balance. We're kind of getting away from this come to balance terminology, right? I think, when Dell taught me tackling in the cohort that I was a part of 2 years or 4 years ago, I guess at this point, he brought up don't talk about breakdown, right? We've gotten away from breakdown because when you say breakdown, what does that typically mean? Players stop their feet, right? What we've found is even this come to balance term, the more and more we use it, we've kind of gotten away from it because when you come to balance, players are starting to stop their feet. So we've really gone to this tamp your feet, right? Because we don't want those feet to ever stop. right? And they're now in a near foot, near shoulder, right? So I talked about that left, right, left. They're now in a left, left, left uh, foot alignment, right? So that left foot, if he's on my left shoulder leverage, is now always in front, and that's within really. We say 5 yards, but it's variable based on the athlete and how well he can laterally move. Right, for some of those guys, they need to tamp at the full 5 yards. Some of our better athletes can get away with staying in their short stride a little bit longer till they close the distance. And finally, as you're tamping, what that left, left, left relationship is doing is it's allowing you to put your power foot into the ground on contact, right? We don't talk about the head here, right? So if you're talking layman's terms, people say head across is the old school method, head on the outside is the old school method. We try not to use the word head at all. It just found that when you talk to kids about their head, they start thinking about it a little bit too much. What we say is eyes through the thighs. Right? If I'm going to put my eyes through his thighs, I'm going to naturally end up with the head alignment that I want without talking about the head, without the head becoming a weapon. So we talk about eyes through the thighs. And then finally, I'm going to shoot the hands on contact with that power foot in the ground. And then we really believe in cutting the engine of the ball carrier, right? So a lot of times, and we'll see this on the video, our wrap up is not, like when I was in high school, you were wrapping up all the way up in his shoulders and everything. We're really trying to cut his engine. What I mean by that is cut his legs out from under him by pulling those knees into my body. And for those of you that wrestled, that's really, it's like a double leg takedown a lot of times. And then you get into your drive for five or wrap and roll, and that's based on whether it's a profile tackle or what type of tackle you're in. All right, so we'll go over some drills. The first style of tackle is going to be the profile. It's the one that everyone thinks about when they're thinking about making a tackle. It's a head-on tackle. We're at a slight angle. All right, we've got a couple drills we use for this. And there's going to be a mix of some of our older drills and some of our newer drills as we had coaching changes. So bear with me on that. But our one-man tackle, this is your standard popsicle sled that a lot of teams have. But you can also use a person. If you're at a school like I was when I first was getting into coaching, where we had a 5-man sled that was probably 100 years old, you can use people for this just fine as well. All right, so just a couple videos. Let me go ahead and remove the overlay. All right, so this is just going over our drive for five, getting that power foot in the ground, right, and drive for five. But you can see how much lower his hand placement is than maybe the old school method that a lot of us may have used when we were in high school, right? So we're simulating that. That's really around his knees. And now we're still going to lift and drive, but we're taking that engine out from that tackler. We can take it all the way to the ground, right? And again, this gets back to the variations that I was talking about. Now we're taking it to the ground. Our pan sled tackle, very similar to the one man. We just use this to get more reps, honestly, out of it. All right, so same thing. You can see there's his power foot. Now you may be asking yourself if you're paying attention to the footwork, right? If he's tamping, I really want this foot to be up. But for the purpose of the drill, we wanted to emphasize the power foot here getting into the ground, right? So that goes back to understanding the drills and the purpose of the drills, right? Is I may break down a skill a little bit differently in order to get a different aspect of the final skill that I want out of that drill, right? And this just allows us to get a rep of both leverages very quickly. This is our zigzag tackle, right? This is, I mentioned that a profile tackle can be at a slight angle, right? But I'm still going to use profile technique, right? We're just working on the zigzag footwork from the linebacker position. Coach mentioned that I've worked with pretty much every position on defense at this point in my time here. But I am a linebacker guy through and through, so that's what a lot of our drills are going to be tonight. But one thing our coordinator believes in is a lot of carryover from position to position. So we'll see some of that as well. Just a game rep. We're watching number 20 right here. Seeing that drill to skill really come into play. He's going to zig, zag, and then he's actually going to end up zagging again, try to get down into it, right? And he ends up not being able to bring his feet because of the ball carrier, but you can see where that zigzag comes into play. It will make a tackle, bring it down. I think it's important when you talk tackling to understand that that slide I had earlier is the letter of the law, if you will. But as we all know, similar to warfare, right? Like there's a art and there's a science to it, right? And a lot of times you can't get too tied around what you see on film not being exactly how you wrote it up, right? But at the end of the day, are they getting the ball carried down and are they using good technique? Here we're working angle tackle, right? Tracking him. So now we're getting into that short stride. The long stride, you're not going to see on film, but we can do this even from the safety position, right? But we're going to laser the near hip. When we use these tackle wheels here, this is simulating our near hip. All right. So it's very important that the guys understand that because when you first, if you roll out this wheel, a lot of the guys are going to want to tackle the front of it because they're going to think they got to cut off the ball carrier. So it's very important to understand, again, going back to explaining the drill to the athletes. All right. And we can do it a variation of ways. We can use a tackle wheel. This allows us to get variable speeds. You can see the short stride from our linebacker here, Darius Muasau. Gets into a tamp alignment as he finishes the tackle. This is just another variation of angle tackles, right? Short stride, getting our power foot in the ground. This is working the down up alignment, right? Where he's going to go down to come up with the tackle. This is simulating like a screen or a swing pass or the check downs like Coach Cruzy was showing us earlier. Right. And this is just, again, variable ways to get to the tackle. So now I'm adding a skill set of working the drop. He's got to read my eyes as the quarterback. And then now he's making the tackle, right? So as they get better at the individual skills, you can start to layer those skills. All right. This is a classic one we see here, right? Just this is adding a decision-making level, a reactionary level to it. The running back can pick any lane. And now I got to make a profile tackle in the lane. Right. In this case, with the cutback, he decided I went from a left shoulder leverage to I'm now a right shoulder leverage. Again, fitting it within our defense. He knows that in the grand scheme of things, he would have a will linebacker that they're vicing the ball here. So he's now switched his leverage, and that's why you see his head on that side. Because he understands our scheme and our technique, he's able to adjust that leverage on the fly. Here we're layering the block destruction and a profile tackle. So they're going to shock and shed and then form tackle onto a crash pad. This allows them to take him to the ground. Again, you can see the coaching points here. For the sake of time, I'm trying kind of going through these quickly so we can get to the stuff you guys are probably more interested in, which is the game film. But again, we're just layering skills here. At the end of the day, it's still a profile tackle. But you can see the main thing I want to point out here is notice his hand placement here, right? He's cutting out the engine as he's driving for 5. That ball carrier has no chance to drive through him. If I tackle him high and my arms are up here, now I've just made it a mano-a-mano strength battle versus cutting out his legs from under him and being able to easily drive for 5. All right, I mentioned that our coordinator he got elevated from our defensive line coach to our defensive coordinator this year, and one thing he's really brought to us is a full unit defensive tackling mentality. So this is one circuit that we do, and we're going to talk about each of these skills a little bit more in detail. But I just wanted to show this is the entire defense all doing the same tackling circuit. So this first drill is the shoulder punch drill. Right, so you can see demoing it is all the D linemen who played for him last year who know the drill a little bit better. But as you see the other positions go through, they'll be in more of a different position. If they're a DB, they'll start from more of a defensive back 2 point staggered stance, right? But all this is emphasizing is the shoulder punch aspect of the driver five. If you can envision it, the ball carrier is going this way. So my head, right, or my eyes through the thighs is on his outside. The common question when people talk about the leverage tackling, as we call it, is how do you get the proper drive footwork? And a lot of people old school think you got to get the head across to be able to stop his momentum. But this shoulder punch is showing these guys, especially if they're new to our system, that I can still get the same amount of power without, generating concussions to myself through repeated tackling. Right. The other aspect of this particular circuit is the gator tackle. So we can get two different forms of tackle in very quickly. Right. And we'll talk about the gator. We'll show the gator here shortly in some game tape. But again, now this is the ball carrier has slightly out leveraged me, whether my angle was off or, I'm going to get off a block and he's beat me to the spot. Right. So now I'm going to roll through it and we'll see that in game tape. But just showing that I'm still stepping to it until the very last second. And now I'm going to roll through them because my momentum is going to carry me through. I can't drive for five because it's not necessarily a profile tackle anymore. Just one more rep of it. You can see the entire defense is able to get through this drill very quickly. And we do this drill in this particular instance, we're full pads. But we do this drill even for walkthrough. You can do this drill in t-shirt and shorts. Here's an example of a shoulder punch showing up on film. We're going to watch number 20 again, right? And this is a great example of things don't always show up in the game exactly how you drew them up, but when you train those skill sets, they're able to make it work. So he gets it off the block. Not a position I normally like my linebackers to be in, but guess what? We've drilled that. And let me go back. What I forgot to mention on this shoulder punch is you can see the guy in this picture that knows the drill better. Again, this was the first day we implemented this drill. He's grabbing the back of the knee. So if we go back to this game footage, number 20 gets off the block. You can see that hand reaching for a knee, and it's hard to tell from this angle, but it's actually that reach for the knee that allows him to make that tackle with the shoulder punch. So you can see he grabs that knee right there, able to bring that ball carrier down. Again, not necessarily how you would draw it up, but at the end of the day, he's getting brought down, ball carrier's brought down for a tackle for loss. Some other profile tackles. We're watching 53 here. He's going to come into the screen on our left. Right, he starts out at an angle, but he ends up in a profile alignment. Brings the ball carrier down, ready to drive for five. Watching 20 again. You can see his head placement gets off as the ball carrier makes a plant in the ground, right? He's lasering the near hip. And that's the other aspect of how we tackle is because we're leveraging and he's lasering this near hip. When that ball carrier puts a foot in the ground, he doesn't have a cutback angle, right? A lot of times you see guys get cut back on because they're trying to get that head across. And now all their momentum is actually going this way. So it may look like his head's on the wrong side, but that's naturally occurring because the ball carrier just tried to cut back on him, right? But you can see if you're watching with detail that he is actually lasering the near hip. And as he's going down to make that tackle, that ball carrier is cutting back, and that's what's adjusting his head placement. So again, not exactly how you draw it up on the chalkboard, but when you get on the field, it's all about bringing the ball carrier down, and that's why we use that leverage tackling. All right. Here we've got our D line on the quarterback. What I wanted to show here, though, excuse me, the linebacker on a pressure. What I wanted to show here, though, is again, when he makes contact, he's a little bit high, but you see as he's driving for 5, where does his hand go? Right to that knee, right? He's probably going to make this tackle regardless because it's a quarterback and he's not in great position to drive with him, right? But he naturally, because we rep it so much, he feels where his hand is. And without even thinking, his hand goes down to that knee to really cut the engine and finish the tackle. Here you've got the DB's corner out up to the top of the screen. Once again, you can see he's cutting the engine. Would like him to bring his feet a little bit better, right? But he's also dealing with a offensive tackle out there, right? So he's trying to dip under the offensive tackle, brings his feet, but the main thing is he cuts the engine. Right, I'm going to jump to the next form of tackle, the knife tackle. We use this tackle a lot of times more so from our DBs, right? When they're taking on a ball carrier that they may be overmatched with size wise, and a profile tackle is probably going to end up with a bad day for them, right? So what we're aiming for here and what our corners coach is simulating is the running backs running stretch or has gotten out to the leverage of the corner, right? And we're aiming to cut out that outside leg. See it show up in game. Right. He ends up wrapping because he's still going to wrap for the knee, but he's really just taking a dive trying to chop out the leg of the ball carrier. Again, gets to the second level. These guys trying to profile tackle a running back running full speed. Not always going to be the best day for him. Again, it's all about getting them to the ground, dive at the legs, chop out the knees, live to play the next down. I'll jump to, I know I'm probably getting low on time, so I'll go to gator tackle. We show this video when we show the gator roll. This is where the term comes from.
Got about 10 minutes, coach, and then we'll transition to
Okay, perfect.
your
Here
testimony.
you can see the D line working that gator that we showed earlier, right? So just working it, really detailing the gator roll. And then you can see where it shows up in game. Here we've got our corner down bottom. Right, open field. I just need to get the ball carrier on the ground, wrap his legs up. Again, where are his hands? Around the knees. Here he transitions all the way down to the ankles. You could say he's holding on for dear life, but the training kicks in. I'm going to roll, 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 get him to the ground. Here we're watching 53, middle of the field, open field tackle. Right. What I want to talk about here is I talked about the tamping of the feet. It's subtle, but notice how his feet never really stop. He stops right there at the end, but they're still moving. The only critique I would have of him is pick a leverage and maintain the leverage, right? But he's going to keep his feet moving, and that allows him to react. Gator roll, third down, big third down stop in a rivalry game last year for us. We're watching 27, the safety here. Yeah, I talked about sometimes the gator roll isn't necessarily I took a bad angle. Sometimes it's I'm coming off a block, working through the block. Again, big third down stop for us here. I get my arms wrapped around his engine, and then I'm just going to roll, roll, roll till I get him to the ground. Big fourth down stop for us. For example, the gator roll. Right, again, open field. Notice the head placement, right? His eyes are through the thighs, right? So all of the technique is still the same. I just am not in a position where I can drive for 5. So I'm going to bring those feet with me as much as I can by rolling through. Right. Last tackle technique we'll talk about is the cheetah tackle. On the cheetah tackle, we're just trying to clip the feet of the ball carrier, right? So this can show up if you're, in this case, a defensive lineman trying to chase down a quarterback who's scrambling. But we also see this show up in game, chasing down, saving a tackle or saving a touchdown with a tackle on the goal line, right? So this is the drill we use for the cheetah tackle. The main point of emphasis I want to bring up on this, and it won't always show up in game, but you're trying to get that outside hand and you're trying to actually land on your back, right? If I swipe the other way and I land on my shoulder, I can tear an AC joint. So that's what we're teaching here, is trying to get all the way through on the swipe. And this guy does a really good job of it. And you'll actually see him in one of the game clips saving a touchdown. So you can see he's trying to get his back all the way to the ground as he lands. And this is actually his game clip from a couple years ago. We're watching right here. This is one instance where this tackle can show up. So we lose leverage. Right, he's just trying to clip the heels. He ends up getting a hold of both feet, but really he's just reaching for the heels, trying to clip the heels, save a touchdown. Ended up getting a big goal line stop on that drive. Watching 23. Again, out leveraged, trying to chase him down, just trying to clip the heels. Here we don't get out leverage, but because of a blitz that the DB is on, right, he's not in great position to even make a gator roll. So what's he do to the back? I'm going to clip the heels, get him down. That's Ashton Ginty, who's getting a lot of respect nationally. And that was a big time tackle for us, big time bowl game win for us last year. And here's a good example of it from the quarterback scrambling. We're watching number 2. Right, you can see that's all it takes. Again, textbook, I'd like him to land on his back, right, to save his shoulder. He ends up okay here, but that's all we're trying to do. All it takes is that little bit. You can see the quarterback's right foot clips the left foot, gets him down, big third down stop. But that's not just happening on game day without drilling it over and over again, starting all the way back in spring ball. All right, last thing I'll talk about before we'll do the testimonial is takeaways, right? And I'll be brief here. But the thing that I believe in with takeaways is at the end of the day, it's all about the ball, right? So I talked about it's about bringing the ball carrier down, but sometimes we want the bonus points. If you want to make the real money in the league, it's about your takeaways. So one drill we do is just a peanut punch drill, right? So we're just punching at the ball. I'm securing the tackle with my outside hand, my leverage hand, and then that ball carrier is holding it a little bit loose. I'm punching into this point right here where it's a little bit loose right at the elbow, right, and trying to pop that ball out. We're watching number 20 here on the edge. You can see he's not in great position to make a tackle. Let me go back to the other angle, sorry. Not in great position to make a tackle, but he can still impact a play by punching the ball out. Big turnover and a big game for us. 20 is probably one of the best guys I've seen at peanut punch because he's constantly thinking about it. It's all about the ball to him. Can show up anywhere on the field, though. I get beat as a DB. The play's not over until he's in the end zone or we get him down. Right as I'm going to make the tackle, I see that ball's out a little bit. Let me give it a little punch. big time play for us, right? Takes it from an explosive pass play to balls going the other way. Big time momentum swing for us. Watching number 15, Leatu Latu. I know the Jets are going to be playing him this weekend. You guys will get a chance to see him, those of you that are there in person. First round pick, but it's plays like this that really make him special. Chasing the ball down, chance to get involved in the play, always thinking about the ball, punching it out. Big time stop against Cam Ward and the Washington State Cougars. Let me skip ahead a little bit. I know we're running short on time. The other form of the drill is just a strip out, right? It looks simple, but sometimes the drill is just getting them thinking about the ball. I tell a story about this man, Ken Norton Jr. I had the honor of working with him the last 2 years. Former defense coordinator for the Seattle Seahawks, now the linebacker coach for the Commanders. Three-time only player to win 3 Super Bowls straight ever in the NFL. Phenomenal man. But I tell the story about a day where we hadn't gotten a lot of takeaways, especially in the linebacker room. And something as simple as he came in for the morning meeting and told the players it was National Get the Ball Out Day. Just made it up on the spot, said it's National Get the Ball Out Day. That was all they were thinking about. We had 4 interceptions and 5 forced fumbles that day in the linebacker room alone, just from a simple message of today is we're getting the ball out. Always love showing clips against the team across town. Big time play for this safety, number 23. Secures the tackle. Notices he's got the guy down. Ball's there. Let me rip that thing out. Pulling the lawnmower, as we call it. And then he actually gets his own fumble as well. So he gets a 2-for-1. Another 2-for-1 here. I told you 20 is one of the best at forcing fumbles that I've ever seen. He's always thinking about it. Not the greatest technique here. Would love for him to maintain leverage, but he's not going to give up on the play. Keep chasing it down, ripping it out. Big time play for us to beat Iowa just last weekend. So gets a 2-for-1. That's really all I had about tackling. I know I flew through that very quickly. I could talk about tackling probably for 3 hours, and you guys would all get extremely bored. So I apologize if any of that wasn't super clear, but I hope that gave you guys some examples of the different ways in 3 years here with working with 3 different position rooms, 3 different coordinators. I've seen a lot of different ways to teach tackling. But at the end of the day, the fundamentals remain the same. It's about the message to the players that we're trying to get that man to that ball carrier down to the ground. And then something I probably didn't do a great job of highlighting is how many times we have all 11 hats to the ball. That's the other aspect of our defense. When we talk about when one eats, we all eat, is that energy that all 11 hats are getting to the ball. So I can take a shot as a guy, a DB. I can take that shot on a knife tackle because I know making that running back check his feet, even if I miss, there's going to be 10 other guys getting ready to bring him down. So,
fantastic job, Coach. It was very well done, and I think received well by all. Very organized and clean, and boy, the techniques that you guys are using, there's no doubt why you guys are playing so good on defense. So we're going to transition right now, and Anthony's going to talk a little bit about. We've got about 20 minutes here, and then we'll get to the homework part of it. But he'll talk a little bit about his time and how he was introduced to Soldier to the Sidelines, maybe some things that's done for him, a little bit about his path, and then we'll take a few questions on the back end of that. So whenever you're ready, Anthony, go ahead.
Appreciate it. So my background from Columbus, Ohio. So really cool to see Coach Tressel on the Zoom tonight. I still remember my dad sending me to sleep when it looked like we were going to get our butts kicked by Miami, and then coming up to wake me up as that game came down to the wire. So that was a cool experience. But my background in terms of how I got into this profession, I went to the Naval Academy. I actually tried to wrestle at the Naval Academy my freshman year, my plebe year. And then didn't make the team, was able to to stay on the team as a drill partner, a drill dummy for that freshman year. But my spring, I ended up deciding that I wanted to play sprint football. I had heard about sprint football when I was in high school, and decided I wanted to play sprint football. So I played sprint football at the Naval Academy for the last 3 years. What sprint football is, for those of you, especially you high school coaches, is it's a chance for maybe some of your undersized athletes that are still good athletes to play at the next level. They just may not have the size to play at the next level. So sprint football is a league. There's actually 2 leagues now. Um, but it's a weight limit. Everyone on the field has the same weight limit. So the left guard and the corner had the same weight limit prior to the game. So again, a really cool opportunity for me to continue playing football while I studied at the Naval Academy. From 2015 to 2022, I don't think I really touched football other than your typical grunt games in the quad. But I was in the Marine Corps Infantry for 7 years. I was stationed in Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. Served with 2-6, Battalion Landing Team 2-6. Did a deployment on the 26 MEU in 2018. Came home, decided I want to do one more duty station before I hung it up. I got stationed in Okinawa, Japan. Served with the 3rd EOTG, SOTG for you older generation maybe, but had a blast out there. Obviously pretty difficult timing wise in terms of the pandemic, but that kind of brings me to where Soldiers to Sidelines came in. So while I was on deployment and deciding if I wanted to stay in or get out, my roommate on deployment started studying for the MBA. So I started studying with him. And it occurred to me that I had not retained as much of my knowledge from college as I had hoped, and that it was going to be a lot of work. And I said, what work do I want to do that's going to make all of this effort worth it? And I just couldn't, in my mind, come up with anything that any 9 to 5 in my mind that I wanted to do that was going to make all of this effort worth it. And when I thought about what I wanted to do with my life, I kept going back to the 2 things I loved the most were football. I realized that what I thought was just a normal obsession with football was maybe an unhealthy obsession with football compared to other people. And then the part that I loved about the Marine Corps was getting to lead the young Marines, especially, the Lance Corporals. I tell people all the time that the guys that I coach here are literally just Lance Corporals that were better at football in terms of the age group, the struggles that they're having in life. Obviously, they're not being asked to take that life sacrifice. I don't mean to downplay what we did in the military, but in terms of the leadership dynamics, very similar. And so that's what led me to kind of think maybe football was going to be my calling, but had no idea how I was going to do so. Got out to Okinawa, tried to get on with Kadena High School out there right away. Any of you that have gone through the background check process in the DoD school system, was not able to my first year out there, and then COVID hits. And during that time, I actually found Soldiers to Sidelines by happenstance, just looking it up, and was able to do their first online certification, very similar to what you guys are doing right now. And that was in 2020. Immediately bought in, learned so much just from that seminar. You've heard the phrase a lot. It was like drinking through a fire hose. But afterwards got the opportunity to do the membership development program, which I know if they haven't talked about yet, they'll talk about more. I was fortunate. I got in early enough that it was slightly different at that time. I know as Soldiers Sidelines has grown, they've modified it. So I can't speak to what it is now, but I know it's knowing the quality of Soldiers Sidelines, it's still a phenomenal program. But I was lucky enough that I was doing it when Harrison had the time to do one-on-one Zoom calls. So it started very similar to your seminar here, where it starts with high human skills, leadership skills. But I wasn't coaching at the time. But I tell people this all the time. Harrison made me a better Marine leader before he ever made me a better football coach. I would talk to him about the struggles I was having with the unit I was in and the situations that we were in. And I don't think Harrison knew a gunnery sergeant from a Lance Corporal, right? But just his ability to talk people skills, talked me through what struggles I was going through, made me a better Marine leader, and then continued on that program with Dell, all the way skills that at times seemed very rudimentary. Coach, I want to talk, scheme, blah blah blah. But we were doing card drawing, film breakdown. What you guys saw tonight, we started very rudimentary, and then started to work our way up through the membership development program, um, and then continued to do that for a year and a half. And then started looking into, for those of you that are still in or have maybe Marines or service members, that are still in, looked into the Skill Bridge program. Was very fortunate that my timing worked out with my unit, that we were getting ready to downsize anyway. So that they were very supportive of me going through the Skill Bridge process. Was lucky that at UCLA we're fortunate to have a chief of staff here that is a Marine infantry veteran as well, who's a supporter of Soldiers Sidelines. So through the Skill Bridge and Soldiers Sidelines, got in here January 2022 as a volunteer. No promises. I had a 6 month Skill Bridge where I was making money through that. Nothing through UCLA. But Bryce, the chief of staff, told me, work your ass off for 6 months and we'll see what happens. And then, I was just blessed that the timing worked out, that the graduate assistant that was sharing the office with me was getting ready to graduate, and the spot was open 2 months into my volunteer time. And I'd done enough, worked hard enough, and impressed Coach Kelly enough that he was willing to take a chance on me and offered me the position, and that's where I've been for the last 3 years. Mentioned that I've worked with every position on the defense. So my first year, not to get too minute details, but due to coaching rules and everything, the DB room was all together, safeties and corners. So in order to, those skill sets vary, and with the rules and everything, I was the only GA on defense. So I got put in the DB room. I never played DB a day in my life. Really leaned on the analyst who wasn't technically allowed to coach on the field to teach me a lot. Leaned on the DB coach. Had a great year with those guys. Then was fortunate to go to my native position, the linebacker room. Worked with Ken Norton Jr. last year, and then this year, because of staff shakeups again. Very similar to how we are in the military. I'm the Swiss Army knife, I guess you could say, that I'll do anything and work with any position. So I'm now working with the D line and the outside linebackers, edges of the defense. So it's the benefit is I've learned every position, and so I guess you could say I'm a jack of all trades, master of none. But I don't think we ever truly reach mastery. So it's been a fun journey, but none of it would have been possible without the efforts of Harrison and Jared and Dell and Brady Nix, who's not on this call, but just everyone at Soldiers Sidelines. I know I'm missing Joanna. Everyone at Soldiers Sidelines. I know I'm missing some names. Lee, but just the phenomenal opportunities that everyone in the organization has provided me. And then at the end of the day, it's like we know in the military, you show up, you put your head down, and you just get to work.
And I think that's the message here too, is Anthony, you've earned this opportunity. There may have been some doors open through some avenues. All right, Soldiers of Silence obviously helped in that, but your ability, your ability and who you are in your work ethic is what Coach Kelly saw in offering you the position. So really exciting stuff. Appreciate you sharing that. There's a couple folks that had questions in the chat. I'm just going to throw them out there with you. Dorian, I know you had one for Coach earlier, didn't get to, but you've got another one in here, so go ahead.
Well, first off, bless you and thank you. I am excited about this. So, Coach G, I've been pushing this about 20 years, and I've coached every level from little babies all the way up to minor pro. I've done the combines. My question for you is, for somebody that's pushing for any collegiate level, what would you say would be a good route after this seminar? And what were some of the routes that you had to overcome to get to the point you went?
I think the first thing is using the membership development program, right? I tell veterans all the time that there's really three groups that have an advantage when it comes to getting into their foot in the door. The first is the son or daughter of a coach. The second is players, former players. Um, but spring football did not qualify me for former players. Let me tell you that. But we are the third group. We have an advantage that others don't have. Um, Football coaches, I think more so than even the rest of society, recognize the value of the military. They also firmly believe in giving back to the military. Like I said, I'm fortunate here too. I work with actually two former Marines and the son of a Marine. Our head coach is a the son of a Marine. So from the jump, the military aspect was well respected. But we have an advantage over, say, a guy that goes to school and doesn't become a student assistant, or even that's in school trying to become a student assistant. Like we have an aspect that gets our foot in the door maybe a little bit easier. But I would say using the membership development program is that's what connected me to Bryce. It was a very small world story, but I actually ran into an old classmate from the Naval Academy the day Harrison told me that he was connecting me to Bryce. That same classmate had played for Bryce and told me to reach out to Bryce. So very small world story, but Bryce probably isn't paying attention to a random email from a Naval Academy grad just because I'm a Naval Academy grad. But by going through the membership development program, that's really what allowed Harrison to see my work ethic, see my capability, right, and the connection, right. And that's the thing I tell people all the time when they're debating whether to do the membership development program. And the talks of you guys are all certifying, but you're one of how many people are on this Zoom right now? 89 people on a Zoom, right? So as much as they're trying to get to know everybody on a Zoom, right, the ability to go one-on-one or whatever it is now allows you to build that connection where he's now able to call somebody and really vouch for you versus saying, here's the certification that he went through. Also, just the skill sets that you develop through that. I mentioned that Dell had me drawing cards and everything. And at risk of sounding like I'm tooting my own horn, the other day, the DB coach that I've worked with for the last 3 years saw me drawing cards and mentioned that he's very impressed by the detail of my cards and all of that. And I immediately said it goes all the way back to Dell. Right. I still remember the first time I sent Dell 10 cards that took me 4 hours to do because I thought I was doing them amazing and everything. And I'm thinking he's going to email me back and tell me how perfect they are. The first thing he says on Zoom is he says, well, you're lucky you had to scan them and send them to me because I would have ripped them in half and made you redo them. And he said it jokingly and lovingly, but it's that skill set, right? So I came to UCLA with the skill set that a lot of the guys I'm working with, I'm having to teach them how to draw cards, the level of detail that it needs to be. And that none of that was because of me. That was all because of Dell and his training of me. Same with the film breakdown, right? It's just about getting reps. So the membership development program, if you're on this Zoom call and getting certified, that would be the first thing. I'm fortunate I haven't had to get my foot in the door a different way, so I can't really speak to that. But it's all about networking. It's all about building connections. I'll be right there with you guys come this off season as I'm looking to finish my GA time and get a full-time job. And that's, as you talk about the journeys, the two toughest jobs to get are that first job, the GA/volunteer analyst, whatever it is, and then going from a GA to a full-time position. Those are the two toughest jumps, and I haven't had to make that second one yet. So I'll be right there with you guys in terms of, asking for help and all of that. So I can't speak to that as much, but I think the membership development program did everything for me and had me really not only got my foot in the door, but had me prepared to impress when I got here. So that would be my recommendation.
Very good. We've got about 3 minutes left, so I'm going to give you two quick questions, and and because we've got to save just a little time on the back end of this for some homework information. But Joshua, we'll go ahead and unmute yourself and shoot your question out there.
Hey, Coach G, it's first off, it's been an honor and a pleasure to be able to meet everybody that's been on these calls and just be able to be a part of this. So thank you so much for that and for the time you're taking out to do that. I kind of have a two-part question and just kind of want to see your thoughts on it quickly. I've been more on a semi-pro level as a coach, having to deal with just the ins and outs and everything that a team handles from the front office to the field and everything else. And trying to have to deal with things in that life gets in the way all the time. As a military man, we always were interrupted with military getting in the way of life. How would you handle the situation that I happen to be in on a semi-pro level and looking at it from a different perspective like that?
In terms of life getting in the way for you or for your players?
Mostly for the players, they can't make it to practice because they got to make it to work to pay their bills and and put food on the table and take care of so on and so forth. Things like that.
Yeah, I don't have a ton of experience with that, obviously. I guess the closest thing I have is if I didn't really talk about it, but the time I spent with the Hanson Outlaws, a team on Okinawa, right? There's a small league of 3 of the bases and a local team that play. So those were all active duty Marines and sailors that, like you said, military obligations, everything. I think the biggest thing is creating a culture of communication. And then, it was said earlier by Coach Tressel and really everybody that's spoken tonight is if your players know that you care about them as a person, then they're going to put more effort into not only on the field, but getting to the field, right? So recognizing that they have those obligations, trying to work with them. I think that's just part of helping them develop as young men, right? Is how do they allocate their time? We're fortunate here that obviously they have class schedules that we can kind of dictate, right? So I don't have a ton of experience dealing with that, but it's about the communication and then making sure the guys know that you care about them outside of the classroom. So talking to them about jobs, talking to them like, I get some of the best conversations I have with players is just talking to them, nerding out about classes, like something outside of football, is classes or just home life in general, right? But I think when you get that, they're more likely to see that football is a outlet for them and more excited to come every day versus a chore that they have to go do.